Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2019 Career Mode, episode number 111 today for the Spanish Grand Prix in Season 6. If you guys did miss the previous one there at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was an absolute corker of an episode with a race-long battle with my teammate Lucas Weber in the other Renault there, and it went right down to the wire to the last lap, so definitely don't want to miss that one. But we now move into the Spanish Grand Prix, the first start of the European portion of this season, and it's all very tight in the championship, of course. Verstappen and Weber level on points. I'm only 1 point ahead, and it's looking like already it might be a kind of season-long battle between us three, which is mega to think about, really, because Verstappen already a big name anyway, but in a Ferrari car, let alone just being him, and then obviously myself and Weber having great scraps so far and being very equally matched overall in terms of the points. But in the races, it's been quite tricky to really go toe-to-toe with Weber. He very much is a very quick AI driver, so it's always going to be quite tough every single episode to try and match him and try and outdo him, as it were, in qualifying and the race, but more so the race, because really qualifying he's been an absolute alien and machine really overall. But we're going to, speaking of a qualifying, we're going to go into Saturday and see how we do over one lap and then go on towards the race.
You join us today at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for what's bound to be a really hectic qualifying as the teams compete to set the best lap times. I want to talk briefly about the strategy in these qualifying sessions. Anthony Davidson, how can a driver adjust their approach to gain those critical extra tenths of a second?
Well, qualifying isn't about adjusting your approach necessarily, it's more about trying to repeat a low fuel run that you've practiced prior to this session. You're looking for perfection on the lap, and that's hard to achieve if you're trying something new. There are some variables that can stand in your way, however. Track position or unexpected yellow flags, for example. Coupled with ever-changing track conditions, it's important to be out there at the right moment. But as a driver, you have to try and ignore these distractions and just keep your mind focused on that one perfect lap.
So we kick things off, joining at the end of our first final lap in the short qualifying session. Just a banker lap, really, not really too amazing, just a tidy one to get a feel of the car. But in theory, we should be going well around the Spanish Grand Prix. We were surprised about our actual pace at Azerbaijan, especially so in qualifying and both the race. Obviously, we got that kind of 1-2 that was gifted to us from Verstappen having a penalty in qualifying, and then we went on to have a 1-2 in the race. But that was surprising because really at the start of the season, I think the vibe was we're going to be down on power, and that's not going to be where we're going to have our strengths, although the car felt great in the corners. Mid-apex, the car feels really maneuverable and really agile, so that was a surprise in the last two episodes. So really, here at Spain, we should go even better in theory, but of course other cars are there. Norris looking quick right now. We've gone P7 with the second lap we did in this short qualifying session. It was a decent lap. There's still some more time to find. You can see here going to the heart of sector 2, finding a bit more time there. Norris at the moment on provisional pole position. Verstappen down in P6, which is surprising, but of course I think he's on his flyer as well, as we're at the end of this session. The checkered flag has fallen, so he come through the last corner and then gaining that 3 tenths there in the second sector across the line. It's a gain of 3 tenths, but a gain of no positions, and we do finish up in P7 to my surprise. Weber pulled out the bag for a lot of that session. He was behind me. He was down in P9 or P10 in the standings, but then his final run pull out the bag, as he has done, and not unsurprisingly, he's been a very quick qualifier, and he's up there in P3, and it's actually very close between Lando Norris with a surprising pole, Lance Stroll in the Red Bull in second. That's a really surprising front row, really, because I would have thought at least one of Verstappen or Weber would have been there, but I guess, going into a very different start circuit to the last two means that maybe some other cars can come through. We know the Red Bull is still a very good car on the corners, but it's just horrendous with the engine power, with that Honda power in this year's game, even with Season 6 upgrades, compared to everyone else having major engine upgrades, of course, as well. So obviously less of an issue this race. So Stroll's done well there in the Red Bull, and also Norris. We haven't seen too much of McLaren so far, but I mean, it's a bit of an odd one. I thought we would have been up there. Of course, we haven't matched Weber. That's where the car could be at its max potential, it seemed like. So the car is, has got some pace there in quali. I'm sure it will have in the race. Like I said, you would think so compared to Azerbaijan. So it's a case of, again, having to do the job in the race rather than having to do it in qualifying. That's going to be a common theme. You guys know me. I've never been a great qualifier anyway against the AI on the F1 game in career mode there. So let's go to the grid. Let's see if there's any penalties to maybe help out, as was the case last episode with Verstappen early on. And then we'll go ahead and see what we can do in the actual race.
What does the Spanish Grand Prix have in store for us today, I wonder? I hope we see some tight wheel-to-wheel action down the main straight, circa Mansell and Senna way back in '91, or maybe we'll have a more strategic race here on a track where overtaking can be difficult. It's a sellout crowd of 140,000 here today as we await lights out for the 730-metre sprint down to turn 1 of this 2.9-mile racetrack. Overtaking is challenging through these 16 corners, but there's still a lot of high-speed excitement to be found, including the flat-out turn 3 and the terrifying blind right of turn 9. And it's an absolute pleasure to be joined once again by Anthony Davidson. Let's talk about the engineer. That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
There are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out would have boosted their confidence coming into this one.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday and will start from pole position with Lance Stroll alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Weber, Verstappen, Devon Butler and Russell. The engineer, Ricciardo, Giovinazzi and Lewis Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc, Kimi Raikkonen and Hülkenberg, Perez, Bottas, Pierre Gasly and Daniel Kvyat. Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Alright, so no penalties to talk about then ahead of us, so we do indeed start in P7 for the grid for the Spanish Grand Prix, my lucky number 7, so hopefully it might be a good race for us. In terms of the strategy, it's looking like a two-stop either way, kind of a weird one, because you can see there, these strategies are identical, apart from the ending where the other suggestion is going into hard tyres, maybe 1 or 2 laps earlier, which is kind of peculiar, because it's not really much of an advantage then, if you're only going 1 or 2 laps earlier on the hard tyres, so I think we're going to stick with that top strategy of 2 sets of mediums after this, obviously, set of soft tyres we have to start on, lowering the fuel as per usual, even compared to Azerbaijan. Definitely this race will be using even less throttle the entire lap, so I think we can save even more fuel than we did last time out at Azerbaijan, so that won't be much of an issue. But of course, always having to watch out for the engine heating, then go down to standard mixture, so that's how we'll end up doing some of that anyway. But from P7, Weber there on the second row alongside my other championship rival early on in this stage of the season, Verstappen there on the second row, so we've got some catching up to do, and maybe there's some other players in the mix today with the likes of McLaren and Red Bull, but let's just go for it then. The start of the European portion of this season, as we now look up and watch on at those 5 red lights to get us going here at the Spanish Grand Prix from P7 on the grid. 4 lights are out and we're underway. It's actually a really decent start for us there in second gear, leaping up toward Devon Butler, then bogging down slightly. The run to turn 1, a long one there, a little bit of contact with Ricciardo and Giovinazzi. Russell down the inside, a massive dive bomb from Ricciardo. He makes it 3 wide between the Merc, Ferrari and Red Bull as we now get our nose in as well and go round the outside of turn number 3, blipping the throttle a little bit, trying to go and find the grip around the outside of the Australian. We get it done up into P7 once more, so losing out a little bit initially at the start there, recovering somewhat, but Lando Norris leads the way. I believe Lucas Weber's made a great start there. He's in second place now, ahead of Verstappen. Stroll with a horrendous start there in the Red Bull. He's down from P2 to P4, just ahead of George Russell and his teammate Devon Butler. And speaking of George Russell, my former teammate from last season, we had some great battles here. Can we now have another one in different cars? Yellow v red this time, so move on to lap number 3 this is, and still unable to actually make any ends road on him. You can see we're closing up, but you really saw the difference of engine power there. Even though I was in overtake mode, I had slipstream, he was able to keep up with me there. Maybe it might be a different story with DRS, of course it usually is, but right now he's keeping me at bay. But of course now lap number 3, DRS is activated, and so we move on to lap number 4. He's got DRS as well, but let's just see the difference here. I believe the Renault has a bit better drag reduction than the Ferrari, to be honest, and so here we go, making the move finally on the left hand side, but after getting a good toe down the back straight, with side by side through the next second turn, we get the inside line, squeeze him out, have to still leave him some room on the inside there because he has his nose in, he's very close to our gearbox, but eventually has to just tuck in. We go very defensive though, just to cover him off in case, and so that's a really nice battle with my former teammate, but we get the job done, and now we're looking ahead to that clean air ahead of us to try and close up to those those 2 Red Bulls who are 2x2. The same for the Mercs behind us of Ricciardo and Hamilton 2x2. And meanwhile, whilst we did that overtake, Lucas Weber here went on to make a lovely little fake to the right, go to the left, round the outside of Lando Norris, and to the inside, similar move to the one I made on Russell, then in the end to the inside of turn 2. He gets it done in turn 3, then finishes off, and he's actually up into first place of this Spanish Grand Prix. So I really thought, okay, hang on, maybe Norris and Stroll and the Red Bulls are going to be right up there, but it looks like the usual suspects. Weber, you know, Verstappen's right there as well, but once again, Lucas Weber just shows he's just an alien kind of AI driver. He's always there. He's so consistent, and he's got an inevitability about him, to kind of quote Thanos, in a way that he's just always there at the front. He's always just going to be there. So that's why I keep banging on about it. It's just going to, if he keeps up like this and he doesn't get any of that classic AI bad luck that sometimes AI get in career modes, it is going to be a very tough thing to just keep going at him. It's going to almost be kind of tiring for me through the season to keep having to show up every single time and bat like 100 to try and actually match him, basically, because he's such an alien in terms of how good he is basically all the time. But we're going to now make an earlier pit stop, this is, because my engineer actually even advised me, for the first time ever, I actually heard Jeff say a different speech bubble pattern, which was, do you want to maybe pit earlier to get a jump on the car's head, which I've never heard him say, actually. So 6 seasons on, hearing some different things finally from Jeff, about time. And so we do make that earlier pit stop to go onto a set of medium tyres and looking to maybe try and get a good undercut, which is very powerful around here, as has been the case in previous seasons, to be fair. So it's not just Jeff's advice, to be honest. It was always going to happen, I think. And so now we're going to make the most of this outlap and hope the others get held up, kind of fighting each other. Of course, they're nose to tail, so they definitely will hold each other up somewhat. It's not been an amazingly stonking outlap from me, to be honest, but across the line we go. And on the right, you can see there is Devin Butler. So we've already jumped one Red Bull. Not too sure about the other one, because Stroll's yet to make his pit stop. But there's Lando Norris, the man who was in first place at one point, second now in third technically there, because Verstappen is ahead of him up the road in that Ferrari. But here we go, side by side, round the outside of Lando Norris there. He fights us back, we squeeze him to the right hand side, then go to the left of the racing line there, but he's still got the nose in, and he's come through and he's tapped us, he's pushed us wide, and Norris forces us off there. That he physically turned towards us, and I got an actual tap I felt on my steering wheel there, and we had to take evasive action. And to be fair, I've held it quite well, because that could have got a lot worse. I could have span it in the gravel, but I just kept the throttle off and just let the car roll through the gravel trap to keep this going in a straight line. But look at this, some great fighting, to be fair. Initially we squeeze him, harsh but fair. He's on the inside though still. We go around the outside, but then look at this, he just makes a bit too much contact with us on that front left tyre of his there. He physically turned a little bit left into a right-hander to kind of make that squeeze there, and in the end I just had to give up the fight, because otherwise I was either gonna, if I kept fighting the car back, I was either gonna spin, or I just had to let the car roll through the gravel trap like we did. So we lost a lot of time there, and we now find ourselves down the order, catching back up to George Russell. So we have to try and re-overtake Russell in this Grand Prix. It was already annoying enough to be stuck behind him for 3-4 laps that was at the start of the Grand Prix. You have to do it all over again now on lap number 9, whilst also having to catch up with some gravel and dust on our tyres. They've now gone away, of course, as we're clearly now closing back up to the Ferrari man, but that was a very annoying portion. So if I can hopefully catch back up to Lando Norris again in this Grand Prix, I think we'll be going a little bit more aggressive on the overtake potentially to really make it stick, and then just kind of not basically get in the same situation there. But you can see really wringing the neck out of this car, going wide, dipping a tyre into the gravel there on the exit as we watch on Russell make a lovely move around the outside of Butler. Butler's very slow. We somehow find some room on the inside there on the curb, taking a lot of the curb on the left, and we're up into P16 there. I don't know what, Butler's got some sort of issue for sure, because I was surprised Russell even made the move around the outside there, so I just kind of nipped it to the inside, seeing him so slow out that left-hander, and so to good use obviously, because now we're on the back of Russell there, and we didn't waste time being stuck behind him like the Mercedes car has, as you can clearly see on the minimap. But here we go now, a move on Russell, then back up the order ahead of him, and we now go chasing after Lando Norris once again, but he is also making some overtakes himself as he goes and overtakes Kevin Magnussen, and we now find ourselves stuck behind the Dane in the Williams car as we move through to the end of lap number 10 on 11. Verstappen sets fast after the Grand Prix. We're going a lot slower at this stage, as that red last sector not helping us out. It was purple first, green second, but that last sector stuck behind the Williams car was really not what we wanted, and Norris is continuously putting cars between himself and me. First the Williams, now the Toro Rosso of Romain Grosjean. We're going to catch up to the Frenchman there with a very aggressive run up the hill. DRS pops open for both of us there, but we'll make the move round the outside. We got on the curb a little bit, that makes us double lock up there, so quite fine to going too deep into that corner. We make it stick. up into P13, and now we look ahead to try and catching up to Norris finally, because the car ahead of him is the Red Bull, so he should put up more of a fight, I feel, the Red Bull of Lance Stroll. Here he goes, though, Norris down the inside. Let's see the two men on the front row now fighting for P12 and P11 as it stands so far in this Grand Prix. Norris gets chopped off by Lance Stroll, so that McLaren there not finding it as easy to get past the Red Bull as I hoped for, basically, there. So that's what I meant in terms of now we can try and maybe make a move on Norris. We swing through on the right. We make a little bit of contact with his rear right tire. We have a look around the outside, but no use. I've learned from the previous season, I think it was here, of the Spanish Grand Prix, or it may have been the Road to Glory episode, where I tried to go around the outside of a car there. It just didn't work out because they don't give you any room on the outside. So instead we wait for the main pit straight on lap number 13. Both of us with DRS, but again showing the Renault has some greater DRS abilities here around the outside of turn 2, and we're up into P12, and that's actually quite an easy overtake there. So that time Norris has no elbows to poke out and defend with, and so we're up the order now. We can look on the back of Danica Fiat, one of the cars out of sync of this Grand Prix. Of course, the Williams was out of sync, the Toro Rosso of Grosjean out of sync, and now we dive down inside the Russian, and you can see up ahead we're actually not too far off Verstappen and Weber. So that entire kerfuffle of being hit off by Norris and catching back up to Russell and Stroll here, I thought for some reason we'd now massively lost out at any chance of getting close to Verstappen or my teammate Weber, but they've equally been held up with a bit of traffic of their own there. So the top 5 of us that were in the top 5 before the pit stops, of course, we're all actually still very close to each other on track. So it just kind of shows off the season 6 kind of dividends of the entire grid being so close, the field spread being so close. Even if you have a little wobble in a moment, as long as you don't lose too much time, you can still get back into the Grand Prix, which is always a good thing for me and the AI. Whilst we're talking about then, we made the move very easily on Lance Stroll in a straight line there, so we're technically up into a net P3, of course, once everyone makes their first pit stops, because there are quite still a few cars out of sync, including Kimi Raikkonen here. If Verstappen gets past him, we're going to make a diving lunge on the outside to also follow him through there and keep up the pressure on the Ferrari man. But as it stands, Weber's still there ahead of Verstappen there. We're up into P5 and only a few cars left to make their last pit stop then, but it's about just keeping as close as we can. Verstappen is looking pretty punchy, and I think he's going to go for a move on Weber probably before I can make a move on him, because we're a little bit too far back here. So we move on now to lap number 16. Everyone finally makes their pit stop, so there Weber is in first place finally on the road, but for how much longer? Verstappen pulled through on the left hand side, and he's got it cleanly through. I think Weber gets his nose back in front, but Verstappen swings across on the racing line into turn 3, and he's up into first place of the Spanish Grand Prix. Weber down to second, and we are now up into third finally with those pit stops being made. Norris in P4 and the 2 Red Bulls behind of Lance Stroll and Devin Butler, I think. So we now move on to lap number 18 then. 2 personal bests, a third, a fast lap of the Grand Prix from us at this stage of the GP, closing up on Lucas Weber. Now we go to right, then fake to left, and then we're going to make the move the long way around. A little bit too deep though, so Weber is able to get maybe around the outside. Yes, he does, and it's now side by side through turn 3. Another chance to have a battle with our teammate in the same car, but we get the job done, and like we did earlier in the Grand Prix, go defensive to the inside then just to hold off that line and make sure we keep the position, and we do so into sector 2, and we're up into second place now. But for how much longer? Weber comes back at us there. It's been a bit of a slower lap there that second time round. Weber putting on the pressure, around the outside he goes. We go defensive this time there. We've got a good run though through the next right left-hander into the right there, in a decent line to get the accelerator on a little bit faster than Weber could, and we maintain that position where we'll maintain it all the way till the end of lap number 19, and also our second pit stop and final pit stop of the race, onto another set of medium tyres, of course. Verstappen is in with us, but it seems like he's making a pit stop for the hard tyres. I think it is. I think that's literally the hard tyres are going on, which is a very odd strategy from him. And like I mentioned, with the strategy screen at the start of the episode, I thought it was weird anyway. The hard tyres were kind of recommended in the same sort of strategy window as the strategy that we're on, 2 sets of medium tyres. So there we go, Verstappen on hards, the Ferrari maybe not liking its own tyre wear there perhaps, and now we come out with a massive fight ahead of us, which is great to watch, but not maybe too great for me on this out lap, because remember, Weber's still gone on for another lap, and he's in clean air now, so I need to get past these guys as quickly as possible. This is horrendous timing for my pit stop. Verstappen's jumped all these cars. It's Gasly, Vettel, Leclerc. It's actually, I've only realised, it's Vettel v Leclerc, but just both of them not in the Ferrari car. It's a Williams v Haas. A very, very odd combination here of what is a very, current battle, I guess you could say, as we go around the outside of Pierre Gasly. Gasly gives us a real good fight as he's still got his nose in there all the way through to the fast chicane as we go up the hill and And look at this. This is absolutely fantastic squabble between Vettel and Leclerc. They've been side by side for literally the entire lap so far, 2/3 of it. We now make the move on the outside of Sebastian Vettel there, and we're going to go the long way around on Leclerc as well, but he's going to pinch us through on the exit, so we can't quite make that. They're all on hard tyres, so I should have the advantage there, but just no room to make that work on Leclerc. But that was, like I said, it may have been great to watch, but you saw there, the indicator came up for my teammate being in the pit lane, and I feel like I've lost a lot of time. I definitely lost a lot of time doing this now, fighting Leclerc at the worst point in the circuit, having to do a great switchback move nonetheless, so it's a great overtake there on Leclerc. Nice bit of race skill, but it took way too much time, and so now we come across the line, lap 21, and there is going to be George Russell, and there is Weber. He's already into turn 1. That's how much time we lost there. We were ahead of this man, and now we're so far back from him, so that was the worst timing of the pit stop ever so far from my team and me, more so the team, because they're the ones that recommended me that lap to come in. So yeah, I don't know if there's any favoritism going on there, but Weber got very lucky and quite coincidentally jumped us again for this last part of the Grand Prix. But no matter, we catch back up because he is on hard tyres as well. So that's the only one thing there. We may have got unlucky with the pit stop, but we've made the correct choice because I don't know why. I don't know why all these guys have gone to hard tyres. The tyre wear isn't really that bad on the medium. So Weber, it's basically a case of when, not if, can I overtake him, because surely we should have the pace to get him on a softer compounded tyre. But obviously remember, as the race goes on, my tyres will wear out faster than his. But right now, on lap 24, that's not the case. We make the move around the outside very easily on the exit there to pinch him out, and we're up into P3 now. Valtteri Bottas goes on. He is for position. He's on hard tyres going to the end of the Grand Prix, so the Finn doing a great job in the Toro Rosso there. So we close up, practically push him through the last corner though, because he's going so slow on the hard tyres, and we'll get up into second place. But Verstappen is just nowhere to be seen. That time I lost overtaking all 4 of those cars, and 5 really if you include Weber as well, who was part of the picture. We lost a lot of time to Verstappen there. To be honest though, the way he overtook Weber and kind of waltzed off a little bit, I didn't really think we had much hope of catching him there, and really the true Ferrari pace has shown here in the last few laps of this Grand Prix. Verstappen goes towards the line. He's going to win the Spanish Grand Prix, but it's a very, very decent race for us to beat Lucas Weber again, second time in a row here, and get a decent, solid second place from P7, remember. I'll very much take that. Good stuff there from us. And as a team, to be fair, 2-3 as well. Can't complain.
Yes, that's a podium. Excellent drive. The team have worked especially hard this weekend, and this is a fantastic reward.
Here's our winner, pulling their Ferrari into Parc Fermé. What a fantastic race it was. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
Well, they certainly stood out as a drive with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
So it's another race finish in Season 6 and another podium that is all Verstappen, Weber and myself there. I told you, it really seems like so far, if this keeps up, it really is just going to be us 3 fighting for the championship, which is a fantastic, fantastic kind of thought and battle already brewing here with Verstappen in a Ferrari car and us 2 Renaults very equally pegged there, with obviously Lucas Weber being the man he is really, as we know, in this career mode save of mine at least. Obviously, Lucas Weber can be a little bit different from career mode save to career mode save, but in my one, for sure, he's the fast one there. And he's super consistent as well. But we lose the lead in the championship then. Verstappen gets a bit of a cushion. I guess cushion compared to, if you want to compare the 1 point we had to Weber, that is actually quite a big cushion in comparison to just 1 point there. But he's in the lead. We're in second place. Weber down to third there. But it's so early on in the season, so you're just going to take it race by race at this stage. And it just seems like every single race, we're just going to have to push flat out to match our teammate and match the likes of Verstappen and Ferrari. And also, slowly but surely, other players come into the mix. You know, we saw today we got a little bit, miffed off with a McLaren and Red Bull kind of getting in the way as well. So those guys also playing a part in this whole championship fight. The important thing as a team, though, we still lead Ferrari. So us 2 being right up there, it doesn't matter how much Verstappen is quick. If he's just up there alone without Russell, then for the constructors, it'll be good for us as a team in that kind of sense. Obviously, the Drivers' Championship is a different thing, but it's way too early to really start thinking too much about that and being a little bit too selfish with that. But it's just another decent race for us. Not a race win, but still nonetheless a really enjoyable and satisfying result there from P7, especially considering we got hit off by Norris at one point, got held up so much in the pit stop kind of phase in that second part of the Grand Prix. I think we did really well to recover there to P2. So guys, if you did enjoy that episode, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for weekly full-on content. I've been aarava. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.